You code red. This is not a drill. The announcement echoed through the PA system. George paused, pushing his cleaning cart. Gunshot. Close. Too close. 25 years Black Ops. 200-plus missions. Now 67 years old. A janitor with aching knees. But some things don't change. Protect the innocent. George quietly entered the supply closet, and when he emerged 30 seconds later, he didn't have a mop. He had a plan. Jefferson Elementary School in Columbus, Ohio, was having a normal Tuesday morning. Kids were settling into their classes. Teachers were starting lessons. And George Miller was mopping the main hallway like he had every day for the past 15 years. At 67, George moved slower than he used to. His knees protested every step, legacy of too many hard landings in places the U.S. government still denied existed. The other janitors joked that George was the only person who could make mopping look like a military operation. Precise, methodical, thorough. They had no idea how right they were. George had been Delta Force for 25 years. Operations in Somalia, Afghanistan, Iraq, and a dozen countries that never made the news. But that was a lifetime ago. Now he was just Mr. George, the friendly janitor who knew every kid's name and always had a kind word. At 9:47 a.m., everything changed. The main door crashed open. A man entered, mid-30s, wild eyes, shotgun in hand. The secretary's scream was cut short by the blast of the weapon into the ceiling. "Where is she? Where is she?" the man shouted. George recognized the type immediately. Domestic situation. Probably looking for an ex-wife or girlfriend. Teacher, most likely. The worst kind of school threat. Personal, emotional, unpredictable. The code red announcement blared as the secretary managed to hit the panic button. Classroom doors slammed shut, locks clicking. The practiced drill suddenly real. George stood frozen with his mop, playing the part of terrified janitor. His mind, however, was calculating. Distance, 40 feet. Obstacles, trophy case, bench, water fountain. Weapon, pump-action shotgun, probably 5 rounds, 1 spent. Intruder state, agitated, tunnel vision, not checking corners. The intruder stormed past George without a glance. Just another old janitor, invisible, harmless. George quietly pushed his cart to the supply closet and slipped inside. His hands moved with practiced efficiency. Bleach and ammonia, improvised chemical weapon, extension pole from the window cleaning kit, reach and leverage. His leatherwork gloves, protection and grip. Box cutter from his belt, last resort, 30 seconds. That's all it took to transform from janitor to operator. He emerged from the closet as the intruder was trying classroom doors, screaming threats. The man was heading toward the 3rd grade wing, Mrs. Patterson's class. She was young, pretty, recently divorced. It fit. George moved silently down the parallel hallway. His knees screamed, but silence was more important than comfort. Every step calculated, avoiding the squeaky tiles he'd mapped in his mind over 15 years. The intruder reached Mrs. Patterson's door, pounding on it. "Open up, Jennifer! I know you're in there!" Inside, George could hear children crying. His jaw clenched. In Delta, they had a saying, speed, surprise, violence of action. He was too old for speed, but surprise and violence? Those he still had. George came around the corner just as the intruder raised the shotgun to blow the door lock. "Hey," George called out, voice calm. "You looking for Jennifer Patterson?" The man spun around, shotgun swinging wildly. "You know where she is, old man?" "Sure do," George said, approaching slowly, hands visible but the chemical bottles hidden behind his back. She's not in there, though. That's Mr. Rodriguez's class. Spanish lessons. The intruder's eyes narrowed. You're lying. No, sir. George kept his voice steady, submissive. Mrs. Patterson moved to the portable classrooms last month. Budget cuts, you know. I can show you. George was close now. 15 feet. The intruder's stance was all wrong. Weight back, gun held high, finger on the trigger. Amateur. Yeah? Then why was her car in the lot? She carpools now, George improvised, still moving closer. Gas prices and all. Parks at the church across the street. 10 feet. George's muscles coiled. Ready. I'll show you the portable, George offered. It's tricky to find. The intruder considered, then nodded. You first, old man. Try anything and... I'm just a janitor, George said. Bad knees, bad back. Couldn't try anything if I wanted to. As the intruder gestured with the shotgun for George to lead, the old soldier made his move. The bleach and ammonia flew into the intruder's face. As the man screamed and clutched his eyes, George closed the distance. The extension pole swept the shotgun's barrel up and away. The weapon discharged into the ceiling, raining acoustic tiles. George's follow-through brought the pole across the intruder's knee, dropping him. A leather-gloved fist to the temple, precise and brutal. The man went down hard. In 5 seconds, it was over. George kicked the shotgun away, then zip-tied the unconscious intruder's hands with the heavy-duty ties he used for garbage bags. He checked the man's pulse, alive but out cold. Good. Dead suspects meant paperwork and questions. Only then did George allow himself to breathe. His knees were screaming, his back was spasming, but the threat was neutralized. The innocent were protected. Doors began cracking open. Teachers peered out, saw George standing over the intruder. Mr. George? Mrs. Patterson's voice was shaky. How did you... Just lucky, George said, reverting to his janitor persona. Fellow slipped on my wet floor, hit his head. But Principal Anderson, a veteran herself, saw the truth. The tactical positioning, the controlled violence, the professional restraint. This wasn't luck. George, she said quietly, who are you, really? George looked at her, then at the gathering crowd of teachers and staff. No point in hiding now. Master Sergeant George Miller, U.S. Army, retired. Delta Force, 1979 to 2004. The hallway went silent. You're Special Forces? Mrs. Patterson asked. Was, George corrected. Now I'm just a janitor who doesn't like people threatening kids. Police arrived within minutes, followed by SWAT, who weren't needed. They found the intruder secured, the weapon safe, and 400 students and staff unharmed. The lead officer looked at the scene, then at George. Sir, this is professional work. You law enforcement? Military, George said simply. Long time ago. As the intruder was taken away and the school slowly returned to normal, George found himself surrounded by people he'd worked alongside for 15 years, seeing him for the first time. Why didn't you ever tell us? Principal Anderson asked. George shrugged. What's to tell? I'm not that person anymore. I'm just George who keeps your school clean. You saved us, Mrs. Patterson said, tears in her eyes. You saved my kids. Ma'am, any decent person would have done something. But they couldn't have done what you did, she insisted. That was incredible. George was uncomfortable with the attention. In Delta, success meant nobody knew you were there. This was too visible, too public. The media arrived within hours. Hero janitor stops school shooter. Delta Force veteran saves elementary school. George declined all interviews, but the story spread anyway. What touched George most came later. Isabella, a third grader from Mrs. Patterson's class, approached him the next day. Mr. George, were you scared? George knelt to her level, his knees protesting. Very scared, sweetheart. But you saved us anyway? That's what courage is, George explained. Being scared, but doing the right thing anyway. Like a superhero? No, George smiled. Like a person who cares about you. That's better than a superhero. The school board tried to give George a raise, a promotion, a medal. He refused everything. I just want to do my job, he insisted. Keep this school clean and safe. That's all. But things did change. The district hired him as a security consultant, still officially a janitor, but now he trained staff in emergency procedures. His supply closet became an emergency response center. His cleaning routes became security patrols. And the kids, they still called him Mr. George. He still mopped floors and emptied trash. But now they knew their friendly janitor was also their guardian angel. 6 months later, at a school assembly, Isabella read an essay about heroes. Heroes don't always wear capes or uniforms, she read. Sometimes they wear work clothes and push mop buckets. My hero is Mr. George. He keeps our school clean and safe. He was scared, but brave. He's not a superhero. He's better. He's a person who cares about us. George stood in the back, leaning on his mop handle, tears in his eyes. 25 years of classified operations. And this was his finest moment. Not because he'd stopped a threat. He'd done that hundreds of times. But because he'd shown these children that heroes are real. They walk among us, and sometimes they're the people we least expect. The plaque by the main office reads, "This school is protected by more than locks and alarms. It's protected by people who care." And every morning, George Miller, Delta Force operator turned elementary school janitor, continues his watch. Because some missions never end. They just change location. The innocent must be protected. That's not a job. It's a calling. And George Miller, pushing his mop bucket down the halls of Jefferson Elementary, answers that call every single day.